I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't being open about it. And I wasn't hearing from people who had similar experiences. And I kind of missed that. In sobriety is very helpful to me to be able to go into a place with a bunch of people that have had very similar experiences to me, very similar struggles to me, and to just talk to them and go like, man, I had a rough day. Paige Dorian Productions, welcome back to the American Glutton Podcast.
What a dream to be here yet again, opposite
Here we are
you.
again. Here we are again.
Here we are. I had the pleasure of seeing you in the flesh recently. That was so great to see you and Brandy. And, enjoy. We had a non-healthy meal, but, we were moderate about it, I would say.
And this was in Chicago. We should just tell the people the whole thing. The Bear is a popular show. It's about some kind of a Chicago beef sandwich. And so we were feeling very much like we had to eat a beef sandwich. And from the many people I spoke to, we went to the best place, Johnny's Beef.
I'm so glad to know. Oh, yeah. I mean, we had a little bit of, we had some bumblebees to contend with as we sat outside, but we got that done.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I went on to I had a Chicago hot dog the next day with my family. I had pizza one night. Did you have
bright green relish?
I didn't. I'm just a mustard and onions Chicago kind of gal.
Fair enough.
And then I ate some pizza. And the funny thing is, and I'm just going to say it, I got some like Garrett's caramel corn on the way home.
Wow.
Which I did not finish, but I ate some of it on the plane. And there was this moment where I just said to myself, done it. That's enough. You checked all the boxes. You didn't actually, I felt like I didn't have to actually do that popcorn, but I was proud of myself for not finishing it all. Like I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, I'm good. Nice. And I was, happy to get home and back on some type of routine that did not involve those items. But anyway, it was good to see you. And when I saw you, there were a few people that would stop you, and say, hey, and they're podcast listeners, and just really always acknowledging what you have created here and what just how inspiring you are to them. And it made me think, just about this concept. And obviously I've asked you about it before and you talk about it a lot, but the concept of community and just how important it is. We just had a question from a listener recently, about this. It's like, can you talk a little bit about how, what was the community for you when you started off on this journey and, kind of where you're at now and what that has evolved into?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's multi-part. I found when I first lost weight and got down to a weight that I thought, I never had this feeling of satisfaction. And for the longest time, I didn't even put a number on how much weight I wanted to lose. It was just kind of like, I need to lose a lot of weight. And when the spiritual, emotional, psychological click within me occurs, then that will be enough. I'll know it because I'll be changed on the inside and on the outside. I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll feel like I look great and I'll have confidence and I won't have negative self-talk. And so I kept waiting for that. So there was that was the goal. The goal was the expectation for everything in life to improve. And as that never came, I never got to a point where I was like, I'm done. Now I'm going to figure out the rest of my life. But I did at one point go to a doctor to say, like, I've been dieting now for years and years and years. How much weight do I need to lose? I wanted him to tell me, well, the finish line is this number. And he initially said, I was 240 pounds at the time, doing many hours of cardio every single day. Basically, every second of my spare time was spent doing cardio. And I just didn't know. And he said, oh, and I said to him, I think I probably need to lose about 20 pounds. And he said, no, 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 you need to lose 65, 70 pounds. This was devastating to me. I probably told this story a bunch of times. I went and did a DEXA scan. He didn't like the results. I did it again. The results were confirmed. And he said, you're done. You're 14% body fat. You do not need to lose weight. You're at the finish line. End off on dieting. And I left that doctor's office thinking, fuck that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I for sure need to lose a hell of a lot more weight than nothing, because all of the things I've been waiting for, the feeling of self-esteem, the cessation of negative self-talk, none of that has gone. I don't wake up in the morning and think I look great. Life has not just miraculously improved, and I'm fucking crushing myself every day to lose weight. So that happens. And while I'm at that weight and lose my 20 pounds and still feel basically the same, there was a real feeling of dread when I thought about how heavy I was, when I thought about the behaviors and what I did to gain all that weight. So I tried to not think about that. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to forget that person ever existed. I wanted to just go like, here, this is who I am and this is who I've always been. And maybe I can pretend to not have negative self-talk. Maybe I can pretend to feel good about myself. And even there was a little bit of like a fake it till you make it, but fake it till you make it means I have to pretend for sure that that other guy, the guy who got to be 550 pounds, never existed. And what happened was I gained back, how much did I gain back? Almost 200 pounds, 150 pounds. And it happened slowly. You know, I went to do a job and I couldn't do cardio like I'd been doing. And then, you know, it was hard to get back to the cardio. And then my diet started to slip. And then I was like clinging on to 270. And that was, 50 pounds of fat that I'd gained at that point. But I was clinging on to it and trying to just stay there. And that became a real burden. And so I said to Brandy, I had finished a big job and we were on vacation in Hawaii. And I said to her, like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not worth it. I'm not feeling satisfied. I'm here in Hawaii with you guys. All I want to do is go to the gas station with Clementine and eat Spam musubi. Do you know what Spam musubi is, Paige? It's the greatest fucking thing. Imagine a big giant piece of sushi, but instead of fish, it's got Spam on it.
Huh.
It's like a truly magical thing. And I just wanted to go there and have that experience with her, but I'm dieting. And finally when I called it quits, I just was like, and then I gained a lot of weight. But there was a hiding from my previous self. And then my previous self snuck back in and took over again. And so when I then lost weight again, and I was finally starting to go like, okay, this mental euphoria, this state of nirvana that I have expectations, that's not coming. And I got realistic about that. I suddenly was like, I think I have to really start thinking about who I was and who I want to be open about that and accept who I was, because he still exists and there's no getting rid of him. Um, and change the things I can, accept what I can't change. And then I started talking about it and I became more open about it. And so there was like, part of it was coming from a place of selfishness, because I really realized that if I don't take a big, hard look at that I'm not going to be able to progress. If I pretend like this is just who I am, I've got everything's solved, everything's fixed, when it really wasn't. that those problems are going to be able to take control again, rather than I'm going to actively work on those things. I'm going to actively work on my low self-esteem, my feeling of low self-worth, negative chatter, and also realizing like my weight doesn't dictate everything in my life. Life is not hinged on whether the scale is up or down.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are ideas that I'm in control of changing or using to go in a different direction, but they don't have to like be these sad sack things that then cause me to have a good or a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I then started talking about it. I started having conversations. We started doing a podcast just to say, like, hey, I've lost a bunch of weight, but I've lost a bunch of weight a bunch of times now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like pretty good. The diet I'm on, I'm not struggling with. The amount of exercise I'm doing, I'm not struggling with. I can still go to work. I can still spend time with my wife and kids. I can still see my friends. And I can still go have a piece of Spam musubi with my kid in Hawaii. And that doesn't mean that I'm then, eating McDonald's for six every meal for the rest of my trip to Hawaii. It can
Mm-hmm.
be that time, but I have to like be honest with myself about all of it.
And no, that's amazing. So that was all kind of around the time you started the podcast, or
Yeah,
at least that decision.
yeah, by like 2019, late 2019, I realized that I was at a weight that I had that was healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had been at that weight for a little bit of time. I was maintaining that weight up and I was working on maintenance. I was like
Mm-hmm.
actively doing the work where I was paying attention to what I ate every day,
Mm-hmm.
but not starving myself, not feeling overwhelmed by hunger. Um, and I wasn't gaining weight and I was going to the gym. And like that, just the pattern of my life was working well. Um, and the only thing that was missing was I wasn't talking to people. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't being open about it. And I wasn't hearing from people who had similar experiences. And I kind of missed that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that in sobriety is very helpful to me, to be able to go into a place with a bunch of people that have had very similar experiences to me, very similar struggles to me, and to just talk to them and go like, man, I had a rough day. Um, and here's why it was rough, and here's how I dealt with it. And my day is better for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being open about it, not pretending that like I got to this weight and everything's great. Life is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about how life is better like my feet hurt less at the end of the day. Um, I can buy smaller clothes at a quote unquote normal store. For the
Mm-hmm.
majority of my life, I shopped at the Big and Tall Men's shop, which isn't even open anymore because now you can do Big and Tall at Walmart. But I didn't even know that, to be honest with you, because I would go
Mm-hmm.
to a Big and Tall Man shop or Rochester or buy, my Dickies. I think I got up to a size 80 in Dickies.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy them online. Um, and so when I was a size 40, I was still just buying my pants online.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was a size 32 and I realized like I can go to a normal person store, that was a big deal. But like it didn't really make me feel better about myself for more than 5 minutes. Walking
Mm-hmm.
into a store and picking up a pair of pants off the rack and buying them was like this triumphant moment. And then I walked out of the store and life was still there and the triumph ended, the clouds that had been parted with like angels trumpeting down joy upon my head disappeared and like
Mm-hmm.
life was still there. And none of that stuff was permanent. I didn't have to get a seatbelt extension on an airplane. That was a big deal. But the feeling of it being a big deal lasted 5 minutes.
Mm,
The seat's still uncomfortable.
mhm,
It's not like I'm now in a body that fits technically in the seat. Not really, but I guess technically I fit in that seat. I don't have to get a seatbelt extension. And
mhm,
then suddenly it's like I'm in a lazy boy. No, it's still a fucking shitty seat. Your ass hurts, your lower back hurts when by the time you get off the plane, your feet fall asleep maybe, and you gotta like stand up and do squats in the aisle just to like stave off a pulmonary embolism. Like that, like life is still life, but it's a bit more comfortable,
mhm,
But I expected that comfort to change everything, to make everything rosy and wonderful. And
mhm,
when it didn't, I realized like, oh, I have other stuff to to deal with. When I got sober, I thought, this is it. If I can just get sober, I won't have to worry about anything else. And then a
mhm,
year later, I realized, kind of in a funny way, that I was 550 pounds. And like that took over my focus of like, if I can just handle this, I'll feel better. And then many times I felt like if I just have this much money in the bank, life will be better. If I can just X, it's always this idea that everything hinges on one thing. And through conversations and like looking at the reality of my existence, nothing hinges on one thing. But I can find the areas that are benefited by that one thing, but it's not a totality of life. There's still a lot of other stuff to look at. I get up in the morning often and like some chick or gal, sorry, Brandy, for saying chick, some gal might be having a bad hair day. And like, I could look at her hair and think it looks great. Your hair looks great, but your hair to you is presenting as bad, and therefore it's going to cloud your day.
mhm,
Well, I had bad body days like 90% of the time.
mhm,
And I don't want that to get in the way of leading a productive life otherwise, spending time with my wife and kids. And the only way I've felt benefit to any of this is being honest first with myself and then with another person or
mm,
people, going like, what's really going on here?
mhm,
And looking at it and going, oh, I'm lying to myself. I'm completely full of shit with myself first, and then with the remainder of the world second, because I'm living in this idea of an untruth. And so it was really just a matter of getting honest and finding people to communicate with.
mhm.
Honestly, I think I did it selfishly. I think I did it because it benefits me.
Right. Well, and how much of it, because obviously you share so openly and honestly about your, starting point, all these middle points and where you are now. We're not calling it a finish line. It's every day for the rest of your life. You're so open about that. And so, people, can hear that from you. Do you find that when you're just in terms of, you're talking to people and you're hearing their stories, whether it's someone who's, describing, their own struggle, or someone that is, sharing a method they think is the best, or whatever, all these people that we have on, right? It's like we have the everyman, we have an expert, we have an actor, we have so what part of that for you do you feel like, how helpful is that to hear other people sharing their ups and downs, for lack of a better
Other
term?
people sharing their ups and downs is incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get uncomfortable with the experts saying you have to do X, Y, or Z, or X, Y, or Z, or are a necessary component to achieving whatever results you might want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, those words landed with me at a time when And I don't know if this was because when I was a kid and I was put on kind of wacky diets, um, there was always the hope that, well, this diet is going to be salvation, like maybe they've got me cracked with this one.
Hmm.
And then often I would be moved from one diet to the next, but we would like borrow something from the previous diet. So the new diet would be even somewhat more complex than it would have been otherwise, like I remember there was a time where I was doing Atkins, but I had been previously doing something where they said red meat was bad. And so I was doing like Atkins, but with no red meat. So it was like all turkey and Swiss cheese somehow. And I was 10 and didn't understand. And I wasn't making this decision. It was just kind of like my mom felt like there was some sanity in the idea that red food was bad. So it was like no red onion, no red cabbage, no tomato, no red meat, like that kind of thing. And then when we heard about Atkins, it was like, oh, well, let's do this too. This makes sense also. So it's going to be no carbohydrates, but also no red stuff. Um, and those solutions just were something I was so desperate to be solved that I would cling to them and go like, well, I'm an
Hmm.
adherent to this now. This is the truth. And so I do get slightly uncomfortable sometimes with somebody saying you have to do this or the, you know, carbohydrates are poison or nightshades are poison or, eating processed foods is a blow to your microbiome and you can never come back or you can't lose weight if you don't fix your gut. Like all of that lands in my ears as the old Ethan who used to go like, well, that's the solution. That's it. That's all I have to do is fix my microbiome, or that's all I have to do is not eat carbohydrates. Um, but at the same time, I don't believe that any of those things won't work for someone. I think there is probably someone out there who will find success on one of those paths. Do you know what I mean? So I'm
Yes.
open to hearing about it. I want to talk more about these things. For me, any of those kind of like one trick pony solutions didn't work, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to work for somebody else. So I am interested in hearing from those experts.
Hmm.
But it's also incredibly helpful for me to talk about what I went through and to hear from other people about what they went through and how they're navigating it.
Hmm. And so what other, like if what do you say to a person who's, getting to that point, let's say that you were at whatever point it is where they feel like they need that. Like how does a person even start? Because it can be, a little daunting, right? Like yes, we can listen to podcasts for sure, which is I think incredibly helpful depending on, no matter what area of it, whether it's to brighten your day with somebody's comedy podcast, whether it's something like this that gives, actual valuable, actionable information, that's fine, and then but like, what are some first steps someone can take, right? To like start to build a support system of people, of like-minded people or people that they want to learn from or whatnot. Like how do people begin to take, because you have this opportunity to talk in this way, but what do people do to
Yeah.
start?
Well, the first thing I did was I had to become kind of radically honest with myself and go like I've been going up and down with my weight for so long. I gotta start over in a way where I decided everything I think I know is bullshit. I am going to become a student from square one, and all of the assumptions I have about being fat or not from an experiential point of view but just about how the body works, what are the mechanisms for storing fat, because I had so much swimming in my head. If you go online right now, and this all happened for me through diet books. This
Mm-hmm.
was not watching a 5 minute TikTok reel. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying reels, or you know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
it wasn't somebody going, I'm going to give you a breakdown of all the meta-analysis of seed oils in 32 seconds. And I'm going to cite all these studies so you don't have to read them, and just tell you at the end that seed oils are bad and all you have to do is quit eating seed oils. The the data I was getting were literally, my mom would read me Adele Davis books when I was a kid, and Adele Davis was very much against processed foods, and maybe processed foods are evil, and maybe processed foods are the whole problem. You know, there is a lot of evidence that the as processed foods kind of skyrocketed in the 70s and 80s, that's when our weight kind of culturally got started to go out of control. And like there's even some evidence that excuse me, kids who were raised on processed foods and became obese are going to have a lot harder time to lose the weight and keep it off than kids who grew up in the 60s on a, you know, macrobiotic diet.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Just demonizing processed foods didn't turn off my insatiable appetite,
Mm-hmm.
didn't turn off my need to overconsume. You know, I
Yeah.
can go, let's go buy organic potatoes and steaks and, you know, watch me make a meal that I can eat 5,000 calories of in a sitting,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it again for lunch and dinner. You know, like I can do that. But as a kid, my mom would read me Adele Davis books, and that, you know, I think her thing was like, eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a prince and dinner like a pauper. And also, processed foods are the scourge of humanity. And so that was my kind of first insight into dieting. But then it was eat right for your blood type and the Atkins diet and candida and the demonization of nightshades, which I think kind of had some overlap with candida and the blood type diet. You know what I mean? Like all of these things are, it's a Venn diagram of kind
Mm-hmm.
of structures for eating, and I'm in the middle and like stealing from a bunch of them. But so it becomes complicated. I had to like go like, oh, that stuff that I was told at 6 years old that I just clung to, like, you know, sugar is poison. I have to get rid of that idea, because that idea isn't serving me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting better. Clinging on to all that data and knowledge and or ideas, structured thought around food, it's not, I haven't solved anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I like had to get honest with myself. I don't know anything about food, not in a practical, useful way, not in a way, you know, I could tell you definitely, if I drink a bunch of alcohol, I'll feel shitty the next day. But that never really stopped me from drinking a bunch of alcohol, you know? So this idea, I couldn't even tell you back then that if I ate a certain type of meal, I'd feel shitty the next day. I think I just felt shitty all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I had to really recognize that I didn't usefully know anything about food or diet or what my body needed, what it didn't need, what was useful to it, what was just contributing to excess fat,
Mm-hmm.
what would make me feel more energetic. I just didn't know, because I had all these useless ideas that were not helpful. So I had to kind of start over. And every time I'd catch myself going, yeah, but you know, that's processed. You know, whey protein is really processed and processed food is bad. I'd go, stop it. How did that serve you? That has not gotten you anywhere, that kind of thinking. We're just looking for getting protein in. If our focus right now is increasing protein, what's a source? Do you like whey protein? Well, let me try it. Oh yeah, it tastes good. Did I get a stomach ache? No. Okay. Then that's not bad. There's no bad reaction happening. I
Hmm.
had to become a blank slate. And there's a lot of hidden ideas. Brandy used to give me a lot of shit about drinking Diet Coke because we believed that artificial sweeteners were bad. And bad in what way? I don't know. There's good and bad. It was like a moral thing. And by the way, Coca-Cola is also bad because it's sugar. Sugar is also bad. Sugar's bad. Artificial sweeteners are bad. But it wasn't harming me. And so, when I'd go like, no, I don't know why you like, let's actually have a conversation here. If I'm drinking too much caffeine and it's keeping me up, yes, that's not desirable. So that's not optimum. But other than that, I cannot see some correlation with the moralization of Diet Coke. There are studies that suggest that certain amounts of uh, artificial sweeteners can contribute to cancer. But when you look at those studies, it's like 16,000 times the amount I could ever drink in a day of Diet Coke. And I'm not like trying to say everybody should be drinking Diet Coke. I drink it rarely. But and my point is this, even when I'm drinking it, I look at it and I go, this is bad. And I have to go, why is it bad? What's bad about it? It's
Hmm.
just bad because my mom didn't like artificial sweeteners. And so I was raised with this idea that they're not good. And my wife doesn't like artificial sweeteners. So that's being reinforced with me. But like, it isn't bad. It's not harming me. And I've had to do that a number of times, but I'll still see somebody sipping on a Diet Coke and have like a little feeling of judgmentalness over them. And then I go like, what are you doing? You like Diet Coke. What's wrong with you? Let them live their life and enjoy their Diet Coke. Meanwhile, I'll see somebody smoking a cigarette, which I do believe is not good. I believe smoking cigarettes is bad. I'll see somebody smoking a cigarette and I'll feel jealous. I won't have judgment. Sometimes I'll have judgment, but I'll feel like, God, that looks great. The way that they're just like so cool with their cigarette, and I bet they can feel that smoke go down into their lungs, and then the satisfaction with seeing it become exhaled, and just the you're holding the thing, and it just is all appealing. But you know, I see people at the drive-through to McDonald's, and given my headspace, I'll either feel judgmental of them or jealous. This is nonsense. It's
Hmm.
completely nonsense. So stripping away the moralization of food, of good or bad, of the ideas of guilt. If I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner today at McDonald's and far exceeded my calories, the amount of energy my body needs today, yeah, I would feel guilty and I would be okay with feeling guilty. But I should not feel guilty if I occasionally have a meal at McDonald's. I say that to you, I won't do that. But I'll tell you what, we are on the West Coast right now, and I might go to an In-N-Out.
Yeah,
In the
I
next
would.
month, I might hit an In-N-Out one time.
Hmm.
And I say that and I feel I'm judging myself as I say that. And that's not okay.
Hmm.
So I had to get rid of all my ideas about food. I had to try to like cut myself some slack, give myself a break, give myself some grace, and start over and go like, okay, the most fundamental truth with fat loss is thermodynamics, is energy in, energy out. That is the most fundamental truth. So anything, any structure I want to build has to be based around that, no matter what. If it's eat right for your blood type, that other thing is fundamental to eat right for your blood type. Otherwise, I'm going to not lose weight or potentially gain weight. This doesn't mean you have to count calories, but it means you have to be aware that your body can only use a certain amount of energy as energy before it becomes stored as energy for the future, which is fat. That was like a real groundbreaking thing for me because it didn't inform me what to eat. It informed me that I could eat whatever I want, but I couldn't exceed my energy. That was a big deal, and I can build any diet. Atkins, Eat Right for Your Blood Type, Adele Davis, other than the ones that are like super low calorie crash diets, like the Beverly Hills diet or like Fit for Life, or My First Personal Diet, or the Ideal Protein Diet, or any of these diets that are just scammy, low calorie, like extremely low calorie diets. I can build any one of them into this idea that, like, great, for me, I don't do well if I eat nightshades. I don't do well if I eat. This is not factual. I'm giving you I'm positing an idea. Like if I didn't do well eating nightshades, eating processed foods, fine. I still have to build it into this structure where I'm not exceeding total energy every day. And then just got to play with it, but really starting over and going, everything I believe, I got to stop because it's not getting me anywhere. That was so fundamentally key to finding a structure that works.
Wow. Yeah. I really understand what you're saying because I, like you, have done all the diets, the Diet Coke, the judgment, just all
It's
of it. It
fucking
is.
judgment about
Just,
food. It's
yeah, and
crazy.
it's the stuff that just we are inundated with it. We were growing up, we are now. It is wild, and there's so much to sift through. But that's why, yeah, I get it. I don't need to repeat what you said. So yeah, I really get that. And good.
You know what I started doing, Paige? I started going like, well, different people were raised differently with different ideas. And imagine how if you grew up kosher and only knew kosher people, imagine what it would look like watching somebody eat a bacon cheeseburger. Now, today, I find myself being judgmental if I have the urge to eat a bacon cheeseburger. If I catch somebody eating a bacon cheeseburger, I'm like, Jesus, that's a lot of fat. Right. But like, I love a bacon cheeseburger. And I can go back to the time in my life where when I wasn't thinking about anything, a bacon cheeseburger was a completely normal thing to eat. And then find a point of view where it's like, I can judge a bacon cheeseburger not for being excessive in fat, but because there's some arbitrary morality to it, because this group of people doesn't eat pork or cheese with meat. And so like, and I go like, well, it's the same thing. These are like basically almost religious principles, right? I get it. If you're going to consume 800 cans of Diet Coke a day, not going to go well, I bet. First of all, you could probably do dry drowning or like over hydrating yourself if you manage to get that many Diet Cokes in to your system in a day. But yeah, at that point, you're hitting the levels of artificial sweeteners that might contribute to cancer in rats. Okay, don't do that.
Right. Right. And on that note,
Yeah.
that brings us to the end of our podcast today. But thank you for those thoughts, Ethan, on community, how important it is for people to stay connected, to reset. And there's, this podcast is a great place to start, but it is so important. And we have it in so many other areas of our life. I'd be nowhere without my friends, right? Just in like my daily, the conversations, the things, the life we're like, we need it. We need all of that. So
We do.
whether it's your partner, your group of friends, some online community, or, American Glutton, it is important. So thank you for those thoughts. And to anybody out there who has something to share and want to give us a little feedback, you can email us at hello@americanglutton.net.
Thank you, Paige. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.